If you miss anything, you can always go back and listen to the recording. Thanks and welcome, everybody. I'm really happy to have Elyssa here today. She's amazing. She's going to be your speaker for today. She's going to talk about how to train, mentor, and retrain your law firm's next generation of talent. Lisa's wonderful. She's currently Chief Operating Officer at her law firm in New Jersey, Rebenak, Arano, and Mascolo LLP. It's a personal injury law firm. But what's cool about her is that she started in law in 2009 as a receptionist, and she's worked all the way up, transitioned to legal management, and then she is now on the board of directors of ALA and will be the ALA president in April 2026. So she's had multiple roles in the ALA, and she's very involved in all of the New Jersey State Bar Associations and national. So I'm very happy, and we're very lucky to have her as a speaker. And she has a lot of knowledge on how to train people. So with that, she's gonna be the star of the show today. I'll give the floor to her, and then Lisa, if you wanna say more about yourself and just bring us into the topic, this is your show, and thanks everybody for coming. And like I said, we will send out the recording after this to everybody if you missed a portion of it. So welcome.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I don't think I need to add to it. You gassed me up pretty well. So now we'll have to see if my head can even fit through the door for the rest of the day. I appreciate it very much. I'm so happy to be here. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are, to everyone. This is my first time presenting with Centerbase, though I'm quite familiar with their company. They're a proud and chief supporter of the Association of Legal Administrators, an organization that I hold quite dear. I won't talk about that too much now, but it'll filter in throughout today's presentation, as will practical sort of examples and experiences from my job, not only currently, but jobs I've held in the past. Every speaker says that they want their presentation to be interactive. That is always a common part of an introduction. Um, this is knowledge base. There's a lot of information to share. I certainly am amenable to questions at any point. Um, Feel free to put them in the chat and we can go through them at the end. I will do my best to leave time. I do talk quickly, so I'll try to be mindful of that as well. And two more, I guess, disclaimers for lack of a better word. The first is that I don't know where the etymology came from for this phrase, but there is more than one way to skin a cat. Everything I talk about today is one suggestion, one idea, one person's experience. It is not the be all end all comprehensive guide for mentoring, retaining, training, succession planning your talent. But these are some good examples and ideas and sort of concepts to keep in mind as you begin to tackle these um, really, really key drivers for your talent in your organization. Two, the word non-lawyer will probably escape my lips more than I'd like it to. There is just sometimes no way to work around it when you're talking about lawyers versus everyone else who's not a lawyer. It's not my favorite term. It may not be some of your favorite terms. I'll try to use legal professionals or support staff or other indicators when I'm not talking about lawyers themselves, but I promise you it will come out. Please do not take any offense by that. I am a non lawyer. It is just one way to compare two different groups of people. So, with all of that said, we are going to get rolling here because I really want to make sure we're hitting all of our objectives and leaving you with some takeaways.
And Lisa, if you can maybe get closer to the mic, there's some folks saying they have trouble hearing you. I can hear you okay, but maybe just get a little closer.
Sure, I am sitting on top of my computer, but I will get even closer. So if you really start to see the pores and lines on my face, apologies in advance. That is just the way it goes for women of a certain age. So let's talk about what motivates today's legal professionals. And obviously, this is not a comprehensive list, but here's kind of a part and parcel of five major categories and things that I've seen in my career. And the first is career growth and skill development. As was mentioned in my introduction, I started as a receptionist. I'm a COO today. So career growth, skill development was always very important to me. Many legal professionals are seeking clear career pathways, opportunities to grow into senior and specialized roles, as well as access to training in legal tech, compliance, project management. That's a big motivator, especially as legal teams adopt more tech forward operations. And you're going to hear a lot about tech today because it really permeates everything that we're talking about. Purpose and impact. Legal professionals value being part of meaningful work, supporting justice, ethical business practices, public policy. They also want to feel like they're a valued contributor on the legal team. Again, not just support staff, but really a key driver of a client's success. Technology and innovation, exposure to cutting edge legal tech, for example, e-discovery tools, AI, which we'll also probably use in his example many times today, that excites professionals who want to stay ahead in a rapidly modernizing field. And we often hear that law is a lagger and not a leader. But with the advent of this technology and your ability to push it out in your organizations, that's going to help us modernize and get more with the program, like some of our other professional industries. Work life balance. Compared to lawyers, many legal professionals prioritize reasonable hours, remote or hybrid options, and all of that has become available to us post pandemic. It's really shifted the way law firms and legal organizations do business. The last is probably the most important and should have been first on this list, but I like to leave the best for last, and that's recognition and respect. Recognition from attorneys, from leadership, for their expertise, for their work ethic, that will remain a key source of motivation, in my opinion, forever. Um, a collaborative and respectful team culture fosters that retention and engagement. Now let's take a look at why legal professionals leave. Lack of career progression. And you'll see that these are a lot of opposites of what we've talked about in the first part about what's motivating people. These can be demotivators too. And that's that lack of career progression, dead end career structure, few promotion opportunities, or glass ceiling under the attorneys. Underappreciation, feeling undervalued, overlooked, especially if your law firm is very, very attorney centric. And I know you're thinking, what law firm isn't? But there are some out there. I like to think that we aren't always attorney centric here at Ram Law, and that leads to disengagement and turnover. I'll say this quickly as a quick example under underappreciation. The thank you to me is not passe. It does not diminish other things, other motivators that people are looking for. It really is valuable. I thank people for doing their jobs. This is not just going above and beyond, for doing their job well, for doing their job with a smile on their face, for being part of the team, for being willing to pitch in. This is a really silly and maybe minor example, but where we are located in New Jersey, we're in a kind of a busy city. And when trash day comes, before those bins get emptied, sometimes trash blows onto our front lawn. And it is everywhere. And we've gotten cited for it before. We try to go out and clean it up as best we can. And it looks like maybe we're doing some community service or something like that. But we have to get out there and keep our sidewalk clear and our lawn clear, whether it's off our fault or not. My receptionist and I always do this together. Again, I never send her out on her own. We're doing it together. It is not glamorous. We're wearing gloves, we're picking up all sorts of things. I always thank her for that. This was talked about when she came to work for us. This was part of someone's job description. I kind of explained this unique things specific to this one building or this one location of our law firm, but it is something that we have to do probably once a week, maybe every other if we're lucky, and I always thank her for it, and she thanks me for thanking her. So it's a constant cycle of that appreciation for each other, even when we're doing something that, trust me, neither of us want to be doing. Compensation issues, and this is a big one, but it is true. As legal support roles become more specialized, more demanding, that pay stagnation relative to workload and industry standards is a growing complaint. And I know a lot of you, there's only so much that can be done. Um, but do a pay audit every once in a while. Take a look at where things are and really make sure that you're being competitive in the market, or else you'll start to lose people. Overwork and burnout. Some firms still expect long hours with little reward and recognition, especially during that peak litigation or deal season. Be mindful of that. Look out for your employees. Start to notice those signs. Toxic or rigid culture. That hierarchical, siloed, or non inclusive environment where attorneys dominate decision making can push talent out. And lastly, desire for more strategic roles, legal operations, compliance, contract management professionals. They leave. They join legal tech firms, consulting companies, or in-house roles where they can have a broader or more strategic impact rather. Excuse me. Some trends to note. There's also a growing movement toward professionalizing and certifying our non-lawyer roles. You may have noticed at the beginning, I have a bunch of letters after my last name. That was important to me. I wanted to have credentials and earn something to indicate that I had a certain level of knowledge and experience as I moved through the industry. Um, People are also leaving traditional legal environments for tech startups, legal service providers, alternative legal service models, because they offer more autonomy and innovation. Let's talk about training. Again, this is really there's no two ways to skin a cat model. These are just some examples of training models that I've either participated in on the mentee or trainee side, or I've done on the mentor or trainer side over the years, and things, that have really cover a breadth of training opportunities for you and your staff. In my opinion, training begins really from the moment someone engages with your law firm or legal organization looking to join it. So that day one job ad or job posting, to me, that could be a whole other webinar on, engaging people from that day one, that training, that mentality, that experiential element. We won't go into that too much, but let's say your offer is accepted. It's a few days before someone is getting ready to start. How should you conduct that first day training? We talk about this a lot here in New Jersey amongst each other. What's the best way to onboard and pre-board someone? And this is a model that I've seen out there that I think really works, and I've started to adopt with my team. So before day one, you want to send that welcome material, short intro videos, an org chart, a glossary of terms. I can think of for our intake specialists, for instance, we want to send a list of intake terms and legal terminology in English and Spanish so they can get comfortable with that. A lot of Spanish speakers aren't necessarily speaking Spanish in their home lives. That's legalese. So we want to make sure that they have that information. It builds excitement. It reduces that first day friction. On day one, you want to deliver small wins. So something simple like routing an NDA, logging a matter in your matter system, your document management system, things that are easily accomplished that can check things off a list and let an employee know that they're on the right track. For the first week, you should give, it says one hands-on task here, but I would say several. Complete a client intake form using tools with support of a mentor or a trainer. That workflow and completing a process and feeling like you're starting to grasp what your job is going to be is really, really important in that first day, in that first week. And again, even before someone comes on site, getting them acclimated is a way to reduce ambiguity, offer clarity, and build that immediate confidence. You may be nervous as a trainer, but you know that they're nervous as a trainee. And you want to make sure that you're, again, reducing that friction and building that excitement as much as possible. So here are some ongoing training frameworks, and there are a lot here. So I'll try to walk you through each one briefly. If there's something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to investigate it more yourself, because even in these, 6 or 7 different models, there's probably six or seven or 70 different ways to actually execute upon these things. But these are some that I find to be the most scalable, whether you're in a small firm. We have 11 attorneys, about 35 people where we are. Some of you may say that's nothing, that's the tiniest firm I've ever heard of. And others may say, wow, I couldn't imagine working with 11 attorneys and 35 people. Never for me, way too big. So again, you can kind of take these and adopt them for whatever scale or culture you have. So micro learning, and I put gamified in parentheses before that because it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to a game or a reward model, although that is becoming increasingly popular, particularly with our younger generations rising through the ranks and moving through the workforce. It keeps learning fast, fun, and measurable, and here's how it works. So 5 to 10 minute interactive lessons daily. There are a number of platforms out there. I'll give you some examples. I'll say these slowly because I know people always start to write them down. Talent LMS, Lessonly, or Kahoot, spelled Kahoot. Those are some great platforms to start with or to take a look at. They include quizzes, badges, progress points, and level up challenges that are tied to real work. So, for example, I feel like I'm going to use NDA a lot today, but it's easy. Redline your first NDA and get certified. It's instant feedback, it's an instant dopamine hit, and it's a clear sense of progress from day one. Scenario based learning. Um, that trains through realistic legal scenarios and role playing. What's wrong with this compliance checklist, for example? It builds confidence and engagement by mirroring actual responsibilities. To apply it, you can use simulations with real templates and require decisions that have consequences to it. Peer led training and mentorship pods. You can divide learners into small teams led by experienced legal professionals or junior attorneys who guide the teams through weekly challenges. It adds a social layer, it reduces that new hire isolation, and reinforces your organizational culture. The 70-20-10 learning model is a blended learning framework. So it's 70% experiential on the job learning, 20% social. That's peer learning, mentoring. We talked about those mentorship pods or that peer led training just previously, and 10% formal, so classroom or e learning. This encourages early hands on exposure with support and structured learning. You can assign, for example, a legal ops project or a doc review task really early on, and it's supported by that buddy system as well as a follow up workshop to go over, whatever's happened. This is a really common model that's making its way through law firms, as well as the next model we're going to talk about, which is the ADDIE model. As you see on the screen, it stands for analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. It's widely used in corporate legal departments and legal tech training, but it's made its way into private law firms as well. Why this works? It's tailored to your team's skill gaps and goals. You may need to do a skill gap assessment at the start. I'm sure there are many templates out there. Sorry, don't have names of companies for this one. But perhaps even an AI tool could build you a skills gap assessment at this point. But you can really, again, customize this quite specifically, and it will give you the competencies needed, design those scenario based modules. You want to put people in the application of what they need to learn and evaluate those outcomes. Okay, legal ops boot camp. There are a number of organizations that actually do this formally. It's 1 to 2 week intensive training, blending legal acumen, project management, tech, and business knowledge. I hate to sometimes hawk other organizations that are not ALA, but there are a number of amazing ones out there. And I know that two organizations that have run legal ops boot camps in the past are Clock, which is, and I'm looking down for this because I have no idea, Corporate Legal Operations Consortium. We always use a lot of acronyms in law. And the ACC, which is the Association of Corporate Counsel. Some firms have run their internal boot camps as well. Those are your bigger firms. but they are immersive, credibility building. They're ideal for those entry level hires or cross functional training, and for those with big budgets. Okay, so we talked about, we're not done yet. I do acknowledge just in time training, but I want to pause for a second and talk about the six methods that we talked about first. And that those are really proactive methods of training. These are things that you're putting time and care into. Again, you're assessing your workers, you're figuring out how best to learn, or you in your environment can only kind of do one thing given the resources you have and the capabilities of your trainers or mentors. So you're picking one of these models proactively and putting it into place. Everyone learns differently. I want you to keep that in mind as you kind of think about your training frameworks and how people might best consume and apply information. So I would say the quickest way to mobilize if you're not as prepared and you're not as far in advance with your work is this just in time training. It can be a bit reactive. Something comes up, it's the moment of need, and you need to deliver training on a particular skill. For instance, a paralegal is learning red lines and they receive a short tutorial as they're assigned that first document. It prevents overload. It really increases relevance. Again, there's an immediate need for this, and you are training on that immediate need. You can use all sorts of different tools for that. A lot of your legal softwares that you use have these trainings, have these real time lessons available that can walk someone through, be it application or even a quick video or learning module. I won't mention who we use. It's not Centerbase, but I'm sure that Centerbase has training and modules for its team. I've no doubt. So, again, that just in time training can be very, very useful when you don't have the resources or the ability to scale out some of these larger models. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about mentorship programs. I truly would not be where I was today if I did not have wonderful mentors. Although it may surprise you, and maybe it doesn't, that I've never been through any formal mentorship program on the mentee side. I've participated in programs. We have a mentorship or an ambassador program, as we like to call it, at ALA, and that's the Association of Legal Administrators, just in case everyone missed that on the beginning slide or missed that in the introduction. So I've participated as an ambassador, as a mentor to people, but I've never done it on the mentee side. And I think really to kind of flesh out your mentorship program or think about how you might scale or pull out pieces of this for your firm, here's some things that I want you to consider. So first, basic for anything, this is one that you can't skip in this list of 10, and that's defining the purpose and the target roles. You want to clarify your objectives. Is the purpose for, career development, upskilling, retention, DEI goals, and you want to identify your audience. That's really specific roles that you're looking for. Legal ops professionals, lit support, project managers, and you want to understand these people's needs, which may differ a lot from lawyers. Again, more tech training, exposure to business operations, and that career pathway clarity that people are seeking, as we talked about in motivators on the very first slide. You want to structure your mentorship program for flexibility and depth. There's a lot of different formats, short term, 3-month stints, and long term mentorship options. And there's, many mentorship models out there. There's the traditional one-to-one mentoring, there's peer mentoring, which is helpful for that lateral or cross-functional learning. Group mentoring can have panel discussions and roundtables. There's a lot of roundtables that happen at ALA, and I've learned so much over the years from those. So I guess maybe I have participated informally and not realized it. And reverse mentoring, which is the junior professionals mentoring the senior leaders. That can be really helpful for tools, tech, trends. We often hear that people of a certain career stature or age maybe aren't as amenable to tech. I don't know if that's always true. Sometimes it's really someone taking the time to train them and to make sure that they're getting the same support that you would give to a more junior professional. We assume that, once people hit 20 years in their career or a certain age, that maybe they don't need that training or they'll be more self sufficient and be able to figure things out. I don't think that's the case at all. So that reverse mentoring can really, really be helpful, especially if you're bringing on new tech for the very, very first time. You want to match thoughtfully. There's really two big ways to do this, although I'm sure you could think of a million underneath that, and that's that skills-based matching. You can use surveys to match mentees with mentors based on skills that they want to build. Um, or cultural fit. Consider work styles, communication preferences, career aspirations, or a combination thereof if you can. That's wonderful. Integrate real world projects. Mentorship is wonderful. There can be a lot of just general coaching that can happen in the mentor role, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But you really want to create opportunities for mentees to shadow or collaborate on real legal ops or tech driven projects. For example, automating workflows, building a contract database, things like that. You want to encourage mentors to delegate tasks that align with mentees' learning goals. Support professional development. Uh, Big proponent of professional development. Again, that's all we do at ALA. I'm a member of SHRM as well. Crazy professional development there over the years. You want to provide access for your mentees to upskilling resources, tech tools, certifications, Lean Six Sigma programs, and offer workshops or micro learning modules alongside mentorship. Something that we do at our firm. We try to do it once a month. Sometimes it becomes once every other month. Our lunch and learns. So whether that be we've sent a paralegal to a New Jersey State Bar seminar, or they've signed up for a webinar to learn something specific. We ask that person to then come back and lead a lunch and learn, a little bit of a presentation so they can share that knowledge that they've learned, a couple slides like we're doing here today, but also then to facilitate a discussion, best practices. We have one coming up in a few weeks in our firm. We are a plaintiff's personal injury law firm, so we're focusing on provider double billing, how to make sure that we're not having our clients being billed multiple times for the same services, which is ultimately affecting their settlement or their verdict should we get to that point. So we have one attorney who's really dealt with this a lot in his career, sharing with the rest of our team in support with a paralegal who recently took a seminar on this very topic. Again, they're not huge things to scale, and it really brings everyone together to focus on a topic and really supports not only the professional development holistically of your firm, but of that individual. So I think this ties in nicely to focusing on soft skills and not just technical. Number one soft skill, public speaking. There are a lot of people who are not comfortable getting, even sitting here today in front of a computer, or certainly standing on a stage, or even, standing up in a conference room and presenting to a couple colleagues. We really like everyone to have an opportunity to do that so that they can practice their speaking and get more comfortable in front of an audience. But there are a ton of soft skills: cross-functional communication, influencing stakeholders, resilience in your legal departments, ethical decision making, super, super important. We know the charge is on our lawyers to follow the model rules of professional conduct, but the charge is also on our lawyers to educate our staff to follow those rules and those ethical decision making procedures so that there's never any missteps. To me, mentorship programs, and one of the things that I've taken away a lot as an ambassador or mentor to others, is that mutual value. Again, both parties getting something out of it. You want to recognize your mentors formally, whether that be going back to a gamification model where there's leadership points. Internal recognition is wonderful as well, but you can also do external. You know, say we just completed a cycle of our mentorship program. Thank you to so and so and so on a social media post or a newsletter blast that goes out. We send a quarterly newsletter at our firm, kind of highlighting many successes of our lawyers and non-lawyers alike. You can also offer those feedback loops. This is commonly referred to as that 360-degree feedback model. I'm a big proponent of that. At the end of our review periods, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, we do reviews twice a year. So I'm just about to start next week with my team for mid-year. We always ask every employee, what can we do better? What feedback do you have for us? And not in a placating type of way, in a genuine way. We want to know what is hanging you up. What do you need? How can we best support you? Is there something that's happening, at your level in your office that we are missing that we need to be attuned to? That is really, really important as well. You can gain lots of insight that way, especially and I don't want to hammer it too much, but when it comes to those generational perspectives, again, I'm getting older and people who are coming into the law firm are getting younger. So we really need to make sure that we're learning from each other. You want to track your outcomes. How will you know if something's successful if you haven't set some key performance indicators beforehand? Career progression, skills gained, retention, satisfaction rates. Again, you can use surveys or digital tools to kind of track that growth and engagement. ALA does use a survey when we have our mentees finish their program, and we do one for our mentors as well, so that we can, again, refine it. I don't think any mentorship program is ever done and dusted. I think it's constantly a moving target because every mentor mentee relationship is different, and with different personalities, needs, learning styles, those things need to be adjusted. Use tech, use tech wisely. There are several platforms out there. Again, here are those examples: Cronus, Chronus, Together, and Guider. They can manage that matching, scheduling, and tracking process. And even if you're a bit more budget conscious, you can use Slack or Microsoft Teams or something like that with structured channels and check ins to make sure that your mentors and mentees are meeting and communicating regularly. It's great if you assign them, but not great if there's no conversation thereafter. And finally, you want to build a community around the program. We often talk in our law firm and in law firms that I've been in the past about, okay, if we're going to take on this initiative, do we have champions for it? And can we, as a partnership, and me as the firm's COO now, can we together, the six of us, be champions for this particular initiative? That one voice model. We don't want there to be any dissent if we're trying to push out something new. And I think if you're doing a mentorship program and you're spending the time and effort, and people are quote unquote being taken away from their, task based work for their jobs, their client support, doing things to develop them and develop the firm, you want to make sure that everyone's bought in. So you host regular events, mixers. You can do ask me anything sessions with, key personnel so that people who may be interested in those types of jobs or career paths can have the opportunity to engage with someone who may not be their direct mentor. You can do virtual co-working hours where people can sit together and share that knowledge, in a little bit of a different format if you don't have people connecting face to face every single day. And create an alumni network for graduated mentees to become mentors. The Association of Legal Administrators, ALA, has a charitable arm called the Foundation of ALA. And they have this Susan L. French Emerging Leaders Fellowship Program, something that has been, transformative for those who've gone through. It is a 2-year program. So those people are mentees for the first year, and then they become mentors. So again, they're giving back, they're learning. It's a well-rounded professional development experience for someone to participate in both sides of the program, and it ensures that you're kind of building a pipeline and a succession plan within that program. Retention. Ooh boy. If I had the secret sauce, I would share it on the screen. But here are some things that I think can really, really help. In this day and age, people are often looking for the next best thing, but there are ways that you can be anticipatory about it and really cater to people's needs. Again, this goes back to those motivators and demotivators we discussed at the beginning. Professional development, you've heard it before, you'll hear it again. I'll never stop saying it. That is really, really important for people. Um, Career pathing is part of that. So it's that clear career progression, defined, attainable paths for advancement within the organization. A common career path that we have in our law firm is administrative assistant to legal secretary to paralegal. Um, I've promoted, I've been with my firm 7.5 years, and I've promoted at least one person a year, if not more. Having them move through that model because they know how they're supposed to achieve something and they work hard to do that. That certifications and training support, there are a ton of industry certifications for all sorts of niche roles. Again, I have my CLM, my PHR, and my SHRM CP, and those are programs that I've been through. There's also, more finite programs. For instance, if someone at the ALA level is not ready to complete the CLM, which is the Certified Legal Manager exam, if they say, "Oh, that's too big of an bite of the apple for me right now," there's a legal finance specialist certificate that someone can take. 12 weeks of courses. There is an exam at the end, but it's not quite as comprehensive. Again, it's sort of specifically focused on legal finance. That was also something that I completed, and it's a win for someone and a great way to develop them without necessarily signing someone up for a super comprehensive program. Those cross training opportunities are also invaluable. Let people explore, let people try different roles or shadow people to figure out if this is something they want to do. A number of years ago, we were looking for a bookkeeper in our law firm, and one of my paralegals caught me kind of at the end of the day and out of nowhere and said, I'm really interested in bookkeeping. I do all the finances for my family, and I think I have an eye for it, and I'd really like to learn. Bookkeeping was part of my background. That billing specialist or manager was one of the stops along the way in my own career path from receptionist to COO. And I said to this person, if you're willing to learn, we'll let you sort of shadow who we have now. I'm happy to sit with you. I'm happy to do some sessions and teach you what I know and share resources. And ultimately, we did a few. It didn't work out. That person chose to stay as a paralegal. They're still with us today as one of our best performing paralegals. We hired someone else. It just wasn't the sort of right time, but the offer was there, and there was some opportunity taken advantage of by this person to learn something different or to at least see if this might be a path that they wanted to pursue. Flexible work models. I know this can be tricky, and I'm saying flexible work models from a firm that generally has most of its people in 5 days a week in one of our three offices, myself included. Although flexible work models doesn't necessarily have to be hybrid or fully remote. It is flexible scheduling as well, and I think that's something that we try to do very, very well. People have lives; they can't do everything that they need to do in a day before 9 or after 5 or on a weekend. um, if you trust your employees and they trust you, and there can be that transparency. I'm leaving for a doctor's appointment. I'm leaving early to see my son's baseball game. I want to catch my daughter's dance recital. And it's during the week and I need to leave early, or even something like I want to go to a concert or a baseball game, things that I do all the time. By allowing people that flexibility and knowing that they're going to be able to get their work done, that really builds great retention within the firm because you're treating people like the adults that they are. Purpose driven culture. An exercise we did a number of years ago at the firm was defining and creating our core values. This cost $0 to do. It happened to be part of a larger training day, which we did offsite at a country club, and that cost a lot of dollars. But you can do this in your firm or a legal organization for free. I printed out a list online of common core values, 50, 100, whatever they were, words that sparked ideas for people. And I had everybody sit down and circle four or five that spoke most loudly to them when they thought about our firm. I took all of those results and aggregated them, and a number of words drove to the top. And then we had little breakout groups. It was completely voluntary, even though our partners and myself participated. That was the involuntary piece. But when it came to staff, whomever wanted to participate in these sort of focus groups or opportunities to talk about one specific word or concept and flesh that out, were able to do so. So we heard everyone's opinions, and at the end, we chose our four core values, um, and put that out into the universe. It's on our website. When I get to the recognition piece, I'll talk a little bit more about how we use that as well. But it gave people a sense of purpose. And even people coming into the firm, it's something that we talk about with them. We talk about our culture, and we really want to make sure that people are aligned with the business and the values that we promote. But you also want to take a look at, and something we do here at our firm is purpose in the world. We try to be very charitable. We have a charitable matching program. We do offsite charity days. We partner very closely with a local soup kitchen here in New Jersey, specifically New Brunswick, by the Rutgers University campus. Our lawyers do a lot of pro bono work, and we encourage, staff to volunteer and to participate in various initiatives. And again, that kind of goes back to that flexible work model. If someone says, I'd like to go, they're looking for volunteers at the soup kitchen down the street this afternoon. I'd like to, extend my lunch hour or, move something around to go serve. Of course, we would love to do that. We'd like to see more of it. In fact, these are ways that people buy into feeling purpose in their jobs and kind of the impact that they're making. Recognition and inclusion. So I talked about our core values. We decided to develop a core values award as a result of this exercise. It is a monthly award. There is $1 amount that we have allocated per month. If one person wins that award, they get that entire amount. If more than one person wins it, we divide it up. We blast it out to the firm to say that, so and so has won our core values award. We have a separate email address where people can submit nominations. And again, this particular thing is not just someone doing their job well. Again, we thank them for that. This is going above and beyond, being demonstrative of one or more of our core values and really making an impact. Again, beyond the day to day, and they get rewarded for that, and it's really exciting to send those emails every month. Every once in a while, there's a month where we don't have one. It makes me sad. But on the months that we do, it is probably our most responded to and read quickly email of all throughout the month. But there's a lot of ways to recognize achievement. There's other awards. They can be incentive based awards. We do something for telephone call handling. Personal injury law firms get a lot of calls. Our receptionist is wonderful, but she can't answer them all, especially, when we're out picking up the trash on the front lawns. So we have rewards for our other staff helping out. We share staff and all employee wins in our quarterly newsletter, which I mentioned earlier. Even just the social media support for the things that we're doing. I realize I'm at a C-suite level in my firm, but my firm is the first. They were blasting the fact that I was doing this webinar all over the interwebs, and really being very supportive of me. And they would do the same thing, regardless of title or tenure at the firm. We really want to make people feel valued and included, and not just constantly promoting, well, our lawyer is speaking at this, our lawyer is speaking at that. That's great. That's important, right? That's business driver. But think about what your staff may be doing as well, that you can really tout and promote. Tech forward work environment. We've talked about tech so much, I won't stop. You want to equip your staff with cutting edge legal tech tools. You want to make their jobs easier. I know there's sometimes wary feelings about, okay, we're bringing on a particular piece of software. Will it take away my job? Will it replace my job? I hope you've all heard by now that tech is not going to replace you, especially in a legal services industry, but people who know how to use tech will replace you. So I think promoting that tech forward work environment is very, very helpful. As I mentioned, personal injury law firm, one of the things that slows us down and slows our legal support staff down are the volume of medical records, reading through them, putting them in chronological order, making sure we haven't missed anything for from a lien or billing standpoint. We recently partnered with a company that helps us, an AI-driven company that helps us summarize, timeline those particular documents. Of course, everything needs to be reviewed, but we've had weeks and weeks of training, sort of different work groups, tiered structures so that we had that buy-in. Again, our partners were the first ones to kind of test this product out and make sure that it was something we really wanted to commit to in the organization. And I think we've seen a lot of excitement and engagement around this because people know that they're going to have a tool to support them and that our firm is not afraid to adopt and put those things in place. Mentorship and community, we talked a lot about both of these things already. Formal mentor programs, again, just building a sense of camaraderie, collegiality. Those are things that I sell, so to speak, when I am interviewing people. And after we're done here today, I have a number of telephonic interviews this afternoon, and I'll be talking about, how no one is precious about sharing knowledge. We don't have people saying, no, that's not my job. Those are things that stem really from the top down, but also, things that people will talk about amongst one another and share, my firm does this. This is the way that we treat people. So building that sense of we're all in this together cannot be undersold at all. Work life integration, particularly when it comes to mental health and wellness. If someone says they need a mental health day, that should not be mocked by any means. It should not be questioned. There should not have to be a doctor's note behind that. Sometimes people need a reset or a break. I've even had people who are working through really stressful situations. One of the case types we handle in our firm are sexual abuse cases. Those can be, as I'm sure you would imagine, incredibly heavy. And when some of our attorneys are on trial, we try to be really mindful of the support staff that are helping those attorneys, of course, in addition to the attorneys themselves, but making sure that if they need a day or they, need to cut out early because they've been looking at, testimony transcripts and things like that, and it's just a lot for them to take in those details, that we're supporting them well and we're recognizing that they may have certain concerns. But that really, that mental wellness piece affects every single employee, regardless of kind of what type of work they're dealing with. Family support. If you are in a position to do so, I would encourage your law firm or legal organization to offer childcare stipends or family leave policies that go beyond the statutory requirements. Those are things that people really pick up on and appreciate. And again, above all, transparent communication. There are certainly going to be situations from a management or partnership or shareholder side that cannot be shared with employees or can't be shared as transparently as you would like. But be honest about that. Try to have again, town halls or those ask me anything sessions so that people, if you're really doing something transformative or something that's going to shake up your culture or your community, that you're talking about that. Um, Follow through on what you say you're going to do. And that goes back to day one of an employee's experience, day -1, day -10. If you I'm going to have these telephonic interviews with people this afternoon, and I'm going to tell them when I hang up, I will get back to you no later than close of business on Thursday. I will get back to them no later than close of business on Thursday, one way or the other, so that they're not waiting. If there's even that slightest misstep in the beginning of your process, or, there's too many times where you say you're going to do this, or you kind of are fudging words or being cute about how you're delivering something, people will pick up on that and it'll start to, erode your community and your culture. And that will lead to people leaving. Okay, last thing here, succession planning tactics. I really want to be mindful and leave time for questions, and I know we're right up above it. So I won't get into succession planning too much, but you see these things on the screen, and these are what should be obvious to you. I would tell you that you can almost use this as a checklist. You want to make sure that you're aware of your key roles. If you have an opportunity to cross train and build that redundancy, do so. Document institutional knowledge. I spent really before I transitioned to COO, when I was still a firm administrator, I made a handbook of every single thing that I did. Not necessarily because I wanted to, but because I was asked to, and it was an arduous process. But guess what? Every once in a while, there's something that I do only once a year that now I can go back and refer to that handbook, and if should anything ever happen to me, or should I move on elsewhere one day, we've got that stuff documented. Develop your talent. We talked about all the ways to do that before through training programs, mentorship programs. Include your people in your planning. We talked about my core values program and how we included the staff in that. And that was one very small example. But I try to bring in our non lawyers whenever I can. For instance, I have one paralegal who's been with us just about a decade, and he has a really great mind for litigation support vendor and business partner relationships. He really knows, kind of what people need, what they're looking for, even something like a process server. When I'm evaluating a new company, I often bring him into that meeting because he will ask questions from the litigation staff support side that I may not think to ask. And that really gives him buy-in and in turn the staff buy-in because I'm including someone's perspective, some educated person's perspective beyond my own into the relationships and contracts that we're signing. Create transition plans so that ideally when someone leaves, there's not those gaps and just caught off guard moments. Yes, there's people who are going to leave and give their notice or just choose to maybe walk out one day, and things aren't always going to be as smooth as you like, but give people opportunities to document their own processes, create a checklist saying, okay, this paralegal's leaving. Here are the 10 things that I'd like you to let us know where to find or where you've left off before you go. Don't just tell them, oh, make sure you've got the notes to pass on to the next person. That's too broad. And sometimes people can't organize their thoughts and leave you with the information you need. Make sure you have continuity among your business partner relationships. I have a personal policy, and I probably shouldn't say this on here because I'm sure I'll get more emails, but that's fine. If you send me an email, whether I know you or not, I will respond to it. I will respond to your LinkedIn message. It may very well be thank you. Thank you, Bob. We are not in need of your company's services at this time, but I promise to keep your contact information on file for future reference. And I do. I create a subfolder in my email where I keep that message in my LinkedIn inbox and I make sure that I have it noted so that if ever there's a crisis, if ever our IT company goes down, goes out of business, or they get hit and we need to back up, I can reach out to 10, 20 other IT companies. And hopefully, Bob remembers that we had a positive interaction, that I responded to him, that I treated him with respect like a human being, to let him know that I saw his email. And that now I need his help, and he's more apt to work with me versus someone else. Um, Last thing here on succession planning, you have to review and refresh these plans annually. That includes your guides, your documented knowledge, obviously what I wrote a few years ago, all those steps for my job. I've done different things, or we've changed, different vendor relationships, thereby necessitating different processes. It's great if you do it once, but it's not great if you leave it there to rot. You have to constantly be reviewing these things, perhaps put a committee or a work group together to do so. All of these succession planning tactics will stabilize your firm and will feed into all of the programs and things we've talked about before, and really bolster the talent that you have, and let them know that you're thinking about every stage of their journey, not just the stages that may benefit you, but also the ones that'll benefit them. So with that, I will stop sharing. I know that was a ton of information. I'm surprised I still have a voice. If there are any questions or any things that I can repeat for people or guide them in the right direction, happy to do so. I really appreciate everyone's attention, even though I can't see you, but I know you're there.
Thanks, Elyssa. This was great, very helpful. Uh, are the written materials available? Yes, we will send out the slides and the recording. So probably today or tomorrow. Give me a few while I set that up.
Thank you, everyone, and certainly, again, being mindful of emails, you are welcome to share my contact information too when you send out the slides. If someone wants to have a conversation or clarify anything with me, I'm happy to do so. I can't promise I'll be able to book a meeting with you tomorrow, but I am happy to speak through some of these concepts, talk about them in more detail. Again, it would be every concept could be its own presentation. So, happy to lend a hand. Like I said, I would not even be speaking in front of you today if tons and tons of people hadn't done that for me. So happy to take the time and talk to anyone who may need it.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Very thorough too. And it's good to take the time to go through these. It's very important. All
Thank
right.
you,
Well, thanks
everyone.
everybody. I think we don't have any more questions, so we'll let you go a few minutes early. And thank you, Lisa, for everything. We'll send everything out after the webinar. Thanks,
Of
everybody.
course. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Bye.